Recently, the Game Awards announced all the nominees for the different Game Awards categories that they're going to give out this year. Not surprising that Baldur's Gate 3 is the only choice in the Game of the Year category, completely a direct slide towards Todd Howard, personally. There's no way the masterpiece from Bethesda that was released also this year would not be a valid nominee.
Captain Humongous, greetings.
Or perhaps they thought it wouldn't be fair Starfield was in the mix, so they just have a backroom agreement that Starfield is the real Game of the Year and let all the others fight over the scraps. So all of that aside, there was one category in specific that kind of caused a little bit of an upstir in regards to the nomination, and that would be the best indie game category. At a glance you might think that, oh well, these are all clearly smaller studio games, you know, indies. What else would you have quirky, cute pixel graphics and not AAA goodness like Starfield has? You got games like Cocoon, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. All these are clearly made by smaller teams and smaller studios without going through the AAA or AA development publishing pipeline. But one more candidate kind of stands out from the pile, that would be Dave the Diver. So, at a glance you might think that, hey man, sure, this is an indie game, right? It's got pixel graphics, it's got that small studio feel. The game wasn't actually made by a smaller studio outside of the usual publisher development pipeline, so it isn't an indie game despite its best attempts to masquerade as one. Because Dave the Diver is actually made by Nexon, and Nexon is a big developer publisher. And it's not just about publishing the game, they actually developed the whole game. And it's kind of apparent, maybe, for most people. Like, if you look at the main menu, even, it says there, with like bold letters, like Nexon, so it's like their game. So that's because the studio that developed Dave the Diver, while it is their first release, the studio is actually fully owned by Nexon. So essentially what they did was they just split the development team from the main company into a smaller studio. While kind of essentially there's nothing really wrong with this, it kind of does come off as a weird thing to do. Feels like the goal may have been to try and capitalize on a form of viral marketing or something. After all, like, you know, all the people who play the game kind of feel like they discovered an indie gem studio, and like David Diver being their first real big release, and kind of hype it up through that, you know, free marketing. The reality of it being that the actual development studio behind the whole game is a giant developer like Nexon. So the issue with this is kind of highlighted nicely for a Screen Rant article that reads, "It's more than just semantics. Dave the Diver's eligibility for Best Indie Game isn't fair to the other nominees in its category, or to any other indie game that came out this year. As part of a massive game studio behind it, it's not fair to expect the other games in its category, Cocoon, Dredge, Sea of Stars and Viewfinder, to match it in terms of scope or polish. And since Dave the Diver inevitably has a marketing budget, it has potential to reach a wider audience. The Game Awards winners are decided by player votes, so with a significantly larger base, it already has the advantage." And all of this is pretty much true, so if you know about the other games, Viewfinder in particular, like, had a really nice gimmick to the whole game, but you can clearly see that it's from a smaller studio, so the game could have been expanded way more than what it was, and it could have been way better for it. And for example, if it was Nexon developing Viewfinder, they probably would have done that. And you know, at that point, it's not really an indie game anymore. Another issue highlighted by this article is that Dave Diver also pushes other eligible indie games out of the category's nominee pool, disqualifying them from the award. There have been many great indie games released in 2023, like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, the long-awaited spiritual successor to roller skating, graffiti tagging Dreamcast title Jet Set Radio, and, for example, World of Horror, a actually 2-bit style roguelike in which players face off against cosmic terrors in order to save the world from an impending apocalypse. Also saw its full release in 2023, so this game had been in early access for a solid amount of time, and like now they recently fully released it. Pretty cool game, by the way. So all of these truly indie games, and they barely scratched the surface of many uniquely brilliant indie titles that came out this year. Whether they compared to Dave the Diver in mechanical innovation or general appeal isn't the issue. They were all made by smaller teams, with small budgets, and deserve the attention brought by the Game Awards nomination. In fact, without the kind of marketing budget that's helped catapult Dave the Diver into public attention, they need it even more. So yeah, obviously in the long run, Dave the Diver being nominated for the Indie Game of the Year, and even more so if it actually wins Indie Game of the Year, it's kind of just a huge, massive slap in the face for all so-called real indie devs. So it's not It's not that the game itself isn't good or that there is something fundamentally wrong or vile about this game. It's just that when there's such a huge publisher like Nexon behind the game, actively like developing and publishing and marketing the game, at that point it's not really a indie game anymore. So yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind with this whole ordeal. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.